One from the vaults. I've been organizing my cooking video backups, and I found a forgotten video. I produced this video 8 years ago, but somehow it got overlooked and was never uploaded to YouTube. So here is an old video for stuffed lamb chops. I was in the warehouse store yesterday, and on a whim I bought some lamb chops because I got some friends coming over later on today, and I know how much they love lamb. I love lamb too, and I thought it might be fun to make some stuffed lamb chops with extra stuffing on the side because you can never have enough stuffing. So let's get into the ingredients that I'm going to be using for making my stuffed lamb chops. I've got 7 lamb chops here. You need 6 or 7 lamb chops. These range in size 1 to 1.5 inches thick. 2 tablespoons of oil for frying. I'm just going to use regular old olive oil. 1/2 cup, which is 3 ounces or 85 grams of wild rice. 2 cups, 475 milliliters of chicken stock. This is my homemade chicken stock. 1 medium onion. I couldn't find a medium onion, so I'm going to be using part of this large onion. Optionally, I'm going to be adding 1 anchovy fillet. 8 to 10 shiitake mushrooms, about 2 ounces, 57 grams. You do have to pull the stems off. You can save the stems if you want for stock. I'm actually going to put these stems in the bottom of my roasting pan. Okay, I have here also 6 olives that I've pitted. These are very strong olives, so I'm only using 6. You can use more if you want. 1/2 tablespoon capers, rinsed well and drained. 1.5 to 2 cups. This is 150 to 200 grams of breadcrumbs. Depending upon how dry my stuffing is going to be, I'll know when I get to that point how much breadcrumbs to add. 1 tablespoon of freshly chopped parsley. 1/4 cup, which is about 1 ounce, 28 grams of Gruyère cheese. 3 to 4 fresh sage leaves, chopped, or you can, if you want, you can substitute with 1/4 teaspoon of ground sage. Salt and pepper to taste. And then what I will be adding later is maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of either red wine or white wine in the bottom of our roasting pan. My wild rice is going to take the longest to cook. This has to cook 40 to 45 minutes. So I'm going to get that started first. I brought about 1.5 cups of my chicken stock to a boil in this ceramic saucepan that a dear friend gave me. I'm going to cover that, reduce the heat to low, and then set my timer for 40 minutes. I've heated my oil in this skillet. I want to sear my lamb chops. I'm actually cheating a little bit here. This is not olive oil. I'm using some of my goose fat. So these are going to cook for maybe 3 to 4 minutes on both sides, just to sear them well and brown them. So my lamb has been nicely seared here. I'm just going to move this. I'm actually using the same tray that the lamb came in, but I lined it with aluminum foil so I wouldn't cross-contaminate the meat with raw juices. Not that it really matters all that much because these are going to go into the oven later on. I've heated my fat up again. I'm going to put my onions in there. And I'm just going to saute these. I don't want these caramelized, so I'm just going to saute these for about 5-6 minutes until they reach the translucent tender stage. One thing I forgot to do is I want to put my anchovy fillet in there because that will break up as it cooks. And again, you won't even notice it's in there except that it just adds a little bit more of a savory flavor to foods. I love working with anchovy fillets. My onions are done here. These have even started to brown a little bit. So I'm going to move these to a bowl. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my shiitake mushrooms in there and let these go for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. These don't take very long to cook. My mushrooms are done. I'm going to turn my heat off. What I did do is I mentioned when I was talking about the ingredients, you might have to add a little more fat at some point. I didn't add any oil to the pan. I added some butter because at this point That'll help the mushrooms to take on an even better flavor. My wild rice finished cooking, and then I put some cold water in the sink and then set this pan in there just to cool this down enough. I'm going to be adding cheese to this, the Gruyère, and I don't want things so hot they're going to melt the cheese. So warm is fine, hot, no good. So I'm using that with the liquid because I'm going to be putting breadcrumbs in there, my cooked onions. I love onions and stuffing. My cooked shiitake mushrooms, capers. You're going to add a little bit of a mustardy flavor, and we got a plain going overhead. Rather than chopping up my olives, I'm going to put my olive in my garlic press and then just squeeze it in there. And what you end up with is just a nice, practically ground olive. You do have to pull the skin out because the skin will stay in there. Okay, so let me do all my olives here. Okay, so there's my olives in there. Now I want to start putting in my breadcrumbs. I put about half of these in first, and this is my leftover half a cup of stock. Remember, I cooked my wild rice in homemade chicken stock. I'm going to put the rest of my breadcrumbs in there because I know I have room for it. The rest of my stock. And if I have to, I can add even more stock, but I think this will be fine the way it is. Finally, my chopped parsley. Those sage leaves, I chopped those up. And my Gruyère. I haven't added any salt yet because I want to taste it with the Gruyère, but I do want to add some pepper. Freshly ground black pepper. Doesn't that look fantastic? A nice earthy looking stuffing that'll go well with the flavor of lamb. I wouldn't do this for turkey or chicken, but because lamb has such a strong flavor, you need a bold flavor to go with it. All right, let me get out my famous red-handled tasting spoon. I never put this spoon in the food. I always put the food in the spoon. Definitely need some salt. Figured it would. So my stuffing is ready. Now I can begin working with my browned lamb chops. I'm ready to start putting the stuffing in my chops. These obviously aren't going to hold much more than a tablespoon of stuffing. Oh, and by the way, I put those stems in my roasting pan because I can let that flavor my liquid a little bit if I want to use that for sauce afterwards. I'm using a really sharp knife, in this case a boning knife. I'm going to take a good heaping tablespoon of my stuffing, set it in there, shape it, and that's it. I'm not going to tie that or fit that with toothpicks. They're going to fit so tight in my roasting pan that they'll hold themselves together. So there are my chops ready for the oven. I'm heating my oven, by the way, to 375 degrees, and I'm just going to glug some red wine in there. Maybe half a cup to 3/4 of a cup. I want a little bit to pool on the bottom, just to cover the bottom. And then that liquid, if I want to, I can strain it later on and use it as a sauce to cover my chops. Now, of course, I had plenty of stuffing left over. So I've got my little glass baking dish here. I could probably just bake it in this glass bowl. I'm not sure about that, but I know my baking dish here will work fine. You can never have enough stuffing. So as soon as my oven comes up to temperature, I can put these in the oven, and I'm going to cook these these chops to about 130, 135 degrees. I'll be checking them often with a digital thermometer. I'm going to guess this is going to take anywhere from 25 to 35 minutes. I never cook by time when I'm cooking meat like this. I always check it often with a meat thermometer, so I will tell you when I get done how long this actually roasted in the oven. There are my lamb chops, fresh from the oven. The temperature ranged anywhere from about 130, 135 up to 145, depending upon how near a bone I was when I tested these. So I'm going to let these sit now for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then these will be ready to taste and see how good they are. There is a plate with lamb chop stuff, some extra stuffing on the side. How I like to serve lamb is with roasted mixed vegetables. So this is chopped up white potato, butternut squash, and yam. I also put some chopped onion, large chopped onion, and just roasted that until it was tender. That roasts for about an hour and 20 minutes maybe at the most. If I haven't mentioned already, the chops were in the oven for 25 minutes. So there it is, ready to taste and see how good it is. All right. I'm ready to see how my lamb is. I mean, I love lamb anyways. Everybody who knows me knows how much I love lamb. Absolutely tender. Very good. Oh, that is so good. I want to taste my stuffing. Nice strong flavor to the stuffing, which is what I like. That goes well with the lamb. Oh, okay. That is very good. It's a little late for lunch and a little early for dinner, but oh well, excuse me, I'm going to go eat my lamb.